Next thing we'll do is approve or amend.
Chair, would you have people turn on their microphones, please?
The first thing we'll do is approve or amend tonight's meeting agenda of February 27th, 2018. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Moen made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Wagner made the second. Do we have any discussion? No discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The next thing we're gonna do is approve or amend the January 23rd, 2018 Planning and Zoning meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve them?
Make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Alders made the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Wagner seconded. Have any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next we'll have floor items and Eric Maka.
I'm Eric Monka. I am the real estate agent for Farbs. I'm here on behalf of Alvin Farb. He said he cannot be here tonight. Has everyone had a chance to look at this package?
Just talk a little about it, please.
Sure. Did you want us to speak now, or did you guys want to?
Actually,
as a
you
group
should say
plan?
for the public hearing. This is for things that aren't on the agenda.
Okay. Do you guys want me to wait?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably better.
Very good.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing at this time. And the public hearing is a zoning map amendment by Josh Peterson and Ellen Farbs for property owned at 5259 Viking Boulevard for revision to the city zoning map to change 40 acres from C1 commercial to C1 industrial. The amendment is desired to allow for development of a self-storage facility and other unknown businesses, including industrial uses. Well, let the planner at this time present this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a rezoning tonight, the first step in development of this property. So that is all we're considering tonight is rezoning from C1 commercial to I1 industrial. And the request is for the eastern 40 acres of the total 60 acre parcel. Future steps would be subdivision would come later, which involves wetland delineation and determination on the lot lines. And then lastly would be site plan review and possibly special permitting, which would be required for, you know, outdoor storage or multiple buildings on a lot, that kind of thing. So again, tonight is just the rezoning of 40 acres. There are a series of criteria that must be met that are outlined in the report. And that is what the commission will base their decision upon. One thing about a rezoning is that there can be no conditions attached to a rezoning. So in other words, if we rezone to I1, then what we're asking is for all the future development must meet the I1 conditions in the zoning ordinance. We could not attach a condition, for instance, that, let's say we require we require the buildings to meet the C1 or commercial building standards. We can't do that. So if we rezone to I1, then what we're saying is that all future development will meet the I1 standards. So we do not have any specific site plans. We have a very conceptual plan for a mini storage or self-storage facility to be on the far east end of the property. What I laid out for you in the report was the comparison of C1 district uses versus industrial or I1 district uses. So typically, a commercial district is more retail, office, banks, stores, and those kinds of uses. An industrial use is typically more manufacturing, warehousing, and production type facilities. Even though the I1 uses can include a portion of the building can always be commercial or office. But when we review or consider rezoning, the items that are considered by the commission tonight are, one, whether the proposed action is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And this particular rezoning will not require a comprehensive plan amendment because our land use plan is already indicative or indicating a combination of commercial or light industrial. So it does meet that first criteria. The second criteria is whether this proposed use meets the compatibility or is compatible with present and future land uses in the area. So we have commercial industrial to the north and commercial pretty much at that whole intersection there. There is a small amount of residential, but there's somewhat of a buffer with the wetlands to the north. And as far as the eastern properties in Oak Grove, there's a 100-foot buffer that's required for any commercial or industrial use. So between the Oak Grove border and any proposed development, there would be a required buffer zone there. And the third criteria is related to conformity with performance standards contained in the zoning ordinance. And those would be considered at the time of site plan approval. I don't see any problem with that at the present time. The fourth criteria is regarding traffic generation. And as you know, Viking Boulevard and Highway 47 are both highly traveled roads. So adding that traffic from this property onto those roads is really not an issue. Lastly, the question is, can the proposed use be accommodated by existing public services and facilities? We don't have any public services, so the development there would be required to meet any septic and well requirements or under state statute. So at this time, I will hand it back to the chair, and you can open up the public hearing. Thank you.
First of all, we'll ask the applicant if they have any comments or statement to make this time. Eric, you're representing, okay, do you have any statements you want to make at this time?
Sure. You can go through the pack and go to exhibit F. So there's a concern between, on the frontage road plan, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, it's there in case of a 22 becoming a divided highway, is that correct? Is that sort of the plan of it being back this far from the intersection of 22 and 47?
That's part of it, right, with it was adopted as part of the comprehensive plan, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We have a couple concerns. If we divide this into 3, which is the plan, we want to make sure we can get direct access off of 22 for each lot. And if this frontage road starts down at the east end, will the county not give us access on these other 2 lots this frontage road was started on the east end. That's one of the main concerns, because we don't wanna have essentially two lots with no access.
Okay,
And I drove it today, and it's basically almost 3/4 of a mile back from the intersection. And I try to envision this 20 on the western side where the homestead is, if that's gonna be commercial retail, left commercial retail, how that business is going to survive with an access point 3/4 of a mile down the road. So that is a concern of mine and my clients looking into the future. So how can we mitigate that, and can we grant or guarantee access if the county, depends how the county's gonna do this access point, it starts, not gonna give us access in these other parcels. I don't know if, Liz, you know the answer to that, or?
Go
can
ahead.
I respond? Well, I can't, make any decisions for the county, of course, but my viewpoint on it is if the applicants were to come forward with the subdivision for the 3 lots like they want, it's up to the city council as to whether they want the right-of-way dedicated for the future frontage road. And then, number 2 is, do they have the option at that point of either just holding the right-of-way for future construction of the frontage road, or requiring, a stub street to be built. But, so, I know the request is related to direct access. So if the frontage road is not built, or any portion thereof, then the only option we really have is direct access. So it's really up to the city council as to how far we take it. And, like I did say, the frontage road is part of the comprehensive plan. It's just a matter of, do we ask for that right away now? And typically, that is the time that a city wants to acquire the right of way, is at the subdivision. And then, we do have to think about the ultimate development potential of that land too. We don't wanna landlock anybody or,
Right, and if you go how the frontage road goes up into Joe Green's to the north, just talking with Joe, he has no plans of ever selling, while he's alive. So it's a matter of, there's no access out of that 47 at that point. So again, at least 3/4 of a mile down the road. And just working with a few retail people that I talked to, it's a ways out, and one of them was 10 years. But a concern of his was access.
right,
So we just wanna make sure that we're not, have a piece of property we can't sell in the future, essentially.
I understand, for sure understand your concern. We're also protecting ourselves in the long run, so I don't think, if and when this becomes fully developed, we don't want to, and 22 should become divided. If it does, we don't want to, businesses to fail there because of lack of access. But I think we all agree that we really don't need a frontage road at this time, but we still have to plan for that. So at least that's my opinion. Unfortunately, as part of the rezoning, we cannot add a condition that says, we guarantee you direct access to 22. So, but if there's no frontage road there, the county has to give you access if you're proposing some sort of development. So, yeah, they can't say, well, we're not gonna give you any access, And like if you see the homes going up on Nowland Boulevard there, they platted a part of a road. And in that case, that becomes, future construction. There's always something that will trigger construction of the road, whether it be, the subdivision of another lot, or however it turns out. It's really up to the council, I guess. I hope that helps somewhat.
Sure, and then as far as, is there any way to combine both of these together, the lot splits and the zoning change, or no, is that not?
Well, no, because we don't have what we need right now for the split. We just are considering the rezoning. In other words, for the split, we would need a survey showing the proposed lot lines and the whole wetland delineation and all of that, so we don't have those documents.
Okay. And then the other thing, I guess the park and trail fees, that would be with the split as well, is that what? when that
That's
would
with
come?
the subdivision, yeah, yep.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. At this time, we're gonna ask the clerk to verify the legal publications and mailings and postings have been completed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's been done. Now we'll open it up for the public comments. Anybody wants to make a comment here about this? Give your name and address when you come up
My
there.
name is G.J. Hill, I live on 5499 199th Avenue Northwest. I have a comment on the road. What ton axle is it that you need? What you should do is put your entrance over to the west of where you have it. Go in with a driveway, put in a 5-ton or whatever road you need to service the buildings, which won't get big tonnage. And in the future, go to the left, serve your other as you build. And then you can have a 10-ton axle if you need it. That would be my recommendation. I was 13 years on planning zoning for Lino Lakes in a similar condition you have here. In 2001, I was tempted to, and tried to enter your group as a P&Z member. Somehow I got left out. That's part of life, and after that I got deeply involved in some other things nationally and internationally in my field. But what I'm concerned with is if we put in what I've learned tonight, looks reasonable, but I would recommend that we look at the industrial development change. Commercial is where we sell things, industrial is where we make things. So when you make things, you have to be very careful what type of hazard materials that you're dealing with. And if you're dealing with things that get into the water table, then you create problems, because in my knowledge of the area, when we built my son's house, the water flowed from the east to the west. When we built my house on 199th, and again, it flows from the east to the west. There's an underground stream there, it's about 100 feet wide, and it goes just to the south of my house a little bit. So I'm worried a little bit about my well being contaminated with potential toxic material, similar to what happened to a place called east of St. Paul, where 3M put its landfill materials and has now made all the wells east of there subject to pollution. So my concern is that whatever goes in is carefully monitored, and I am on this a little bit here, and I'm going to pick on our report a little bit, because on that particular location where on 47 and 199, there's that parking facility for used car lot. And you did a good job of putting in drainage accepted basins. But unfortunately, there's not enough for the winter 5 months of snow. And my neighbor there, the owner of the place, was sending snow across 199th to the north side of the road, which means he's not doing what should be done, which is not violating the law. So you need to look a little further into snow retention on deep snows, and that could have been done near the basin, very easily with a bigger parking lot or a holding facility. The other thing was that and that's why I hope this gentleman here takes to heart the development of the roads, is in Lino Lakes, when we'd have a development and the road that they would go on to, access to, we required them to build the road on that access side to the weight limit that the trucks would hold, 10-ton axle, 5-ton axle, whatever, or 7-ton. You didn't do it, or was not done on the north side of 199th, so that particular road there, when you get towards the end, it's really mauled up in certain time, all the time, so it's getting a lot of use. And I wish we had done something where we would require him to put a 10-ton axle, 200-plus foot on that road. So once the contract agreement with the city is done, you can't go back and change it. So this gentleman's willing to work with you, I think he'll do a pretty good job. That's really all I have, other than, I still wouldn't mind helping the planning and zoning board out, because I'm still working in South Dakota, Minnesota, as a registered structural engineer, and I don't plan on quitting until they bury me. So, I don't know, I had my application in, but if you have a form, I'll fill it out for you.
Well, thank you.
And that's all I have. Anybody have questions?
Not this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Want to get up and make a comment about this? Yes, come up and give your name and address, please.
I'm not prepared, but Joel Chepkus. I live on Quapaw, so east of where we're talking. So I just had actually a couple of questions. Is this plan locked and loaded? Because it kind of sounds like that sitting back here. So I just urge you guys to just hear out a resident. So we just moved to Oak Grove, so it's, we're right on the border of the proposal here. I urge you guys just to take a look at it, because it's, the reason why we moved out here was for things like this not to be there. We really like the openness. What's the tagline of Now Then?
Where it still feels like country.
So I urge you guys to take that to heart, because that is who the city of Now Then is. It feels like this plan is locked and loaded, and again, moved out from Champlin, maybe, we were living there for 10 years, and we loved it. There's not a whole lot of industrial or commercial stuff out here. We live kind of right in the wetlands area, so we love living out here. And we kind of got that letter in the mail and get a little nervous, especially hearing some of the industrial waste too. So that's concerning. There's a lot of different things that concern. There's a lot of houses that this property backs up to that shares that water table. So again, I think I'm not prepared, so I'm just kind of speaking from the heart here, but I would urge you guys to remember your tagline, still feels like country, when you're making this decision.
Okay,
Sure.
thank
Chair?
you.
Because it does feel like it's locked and loaded, and it feels like it might be there's revenue involved, right? So I get it, but just, that's all I like to say. Any questions for me?
Yes.
I just want to be sure that you're aware that if the property is currently zoned commercial.
But it's
Yeah.
not selling, right?
Yeah, so it's been,
There's a reason for it.
right, our land use plan since 2009 has shown commercial or light industrial in that location.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that. So we're not changing the land use designation. The request is, yeah, just for the zoning change tonight.
And what does the zoning mean?
So, commercial uses, which would be permitted now, the way it is, would be like retail, office, stores, or let's say a karate studio, that kind of stuff, a restaurant. If we rezone to industrial, then we're allowing storage, warehousing, manufacturing.
There's a reason for the change though, right? I'm assuming that it's probably gonna be a little bit easier to market. There sounds like there's some plans in place, all those kinds of things. So I just, again, just the voice of opposition here, as you guys are kind of going in your planning meeting next week or a couple weeks, you're making the decision.
Yes.
I just want to at least have one person that hopefully you remember.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think, you know, it's always good to be educational at these opportunities too. I know it's a business meeting of the planning commission. Decisions here tonight, first of all, it isn't locked and loaded. This is the first time it's come
Okay.
before the commission.
First meeting that I've been to, so.
And we appreciate that these meetings are a lot more exciting than Oak Grove, so.
Maybe I'll start attending those too.
But this is coming before the commission for discussion. It is, as the planner said, it is already zoned commercial, so those uses are allowable there.
Yep.
There is a particular interested party that thinks it would be easier to develop as an industrial site rather than commercial. And so the proposal here is to address the zoning, but this is the first time the commission's had an opportunity to discuss it. And the purpose of a public hearing is for people like you who live nearby. That's why you got the notice, to come up and say, here's what I think about it. And the commission takes that into consideration. When we make a decision here, what precedence does it set? What does it do to other commercial properties in the city? Not just this one, but other commercial properties that may want to go industrial type of thing. So they understand that there's long-term ramifications. The public hearing is to get the pros and cons from the neighbors around there that can weigh in on that, and then they make a recommendation.
Sure.
That recommendation then goes to the city council for final decision. So the city council, in the first part of March, if there's a recommendation that comes out here tonight, would be the final deciding factor in that. So they aren't bound by the recommendations of the commission. The commission could vote to deny and the council could vote to approve, or vice versa. But that's part of the process that you get to be part of as a
Okay,
representative.
I appreciate the letter in the mail too.
So,
I know I'm.
but it isn't locked and loaded. This is
Okay.
the first time they've had a chance to discuss it, so. It certainly, you know, it is something there to be considered. While the property's been for sale for a while, that doesn't factor into the city's decision, is it best for the city? You know?
Right, and I
We're
guess.
not a marketing
Yep,
agent.
totally agree, and this is an educational piece for me, because I'm not well versed in this area, but there's a reason for the rezoning. It sounds like there's some potential plans in place that will help bring some different things to that
Well,
property.
certainly was it within their right to
Yep,
say, this
Totally.
works better for us and we'd like the city to participate in
yep,
that.
totally.
The city has
Again,
to look at the long-term ramifications
Yep,
to this particular parcel and to other parcels.
yep,
And
and
you being a
again,
neighbor,
just,
get a chance to weigh in on that. So.
yep, and my voice is just saying, we don't want any change out here.
Okay, thank you.
You guys
Thank
probably haven't ever heard that before, but I hope I'm speaking
One time we heard it.
Is there anybody else?
I'll speak.
Yes, name and address, please.
Josh Peterson, 7679 185th Avenue. So I'm one of the applicants for public hearing tonight in this matter, and ultimately, when I look at it, the existing zoning being commercial, you know, now that at this point doesn't really have the density to support retail, you know, 60 acres of it at least, and obviously there's some different uses and whatnot that could be, I don't know, the property's better situated for industrial than retail. So, yeah, as far as like the gentleman's comment, ultimately, I think it's semi-disingenuous. If he'd like to purchase the property, it's obviously for sale. So, I mean, I think it's all of us would love to say that we want to keep our area kind of and whatnot, but at the same time, he has the same opportunity to purchase the land and protect his interests and maintain the city the way he sees fit, so. Other than that, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that want to make a comment this time? It's your opportunity.
I have a couple questions, I have to listen.
Name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Joseph Hanson, Chuck's neighbor, 5460 199th Avenue. Can I ask a couple quick questions, Chuck? Sure. You own the property, right?
No, it's in a contract,
From who?
Elton Farb.
And then when did they purchase the property?
Farb's have owned it a long time. I'm their real estate agent.
Oh, they-
They've owned it for 60 years, maybe, I don't know, Gailey, maybe no longer, but
Maybe longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah, longer than that.
Okay. I'm also uneducated in this, so is there an agricultural zone? Like, is there a reason that it's now a farm, and now it's an unsold commercial zone?
Yes.
And now becoming an unsold industrial zone?
So the way it worked, when, the city took a look at all the land use at a certain point,
Just correction, the township.
township, when the township looked at the land use and they designated a couple areas at those busy intersections, now then Boulevard and 22 and 47 and 22, for, future business uses. So they rezoned that land, commercial and industrial, depending on where you are there at the intersection. So what happens is the existing use is considered an interim use. In other words, the house becomes an interim use because it's there.
After it gets rezoned, so it gets rezoned, there's probably a public hearing as well, I imagine.
Right, yeah, we had public hearings back then, and 10 years ago when the previous comp
Okay.
plan was approved,
All right,
we
okay.
did all that.
I think I get it, I just wanted a timeline going on of how that kind of happened. Has there been any kind of study as to how this might affect property values in the surrounding area? If a storage facility comes up, if another auto facility comes up, we've got the car dealership down the street already and so on, has there been any kind of study about that?
No, not related to this particular rezoning.
Okay. Well, likewise, right, this is the number one concern here, I imagine, for a number of people, and secondarily involved are all of the environmental repercussions, but I share a similar sentiment, right? It's nice to have the open air of now and then, and not all of us have the ability to just purchase a property and keep the city how we would like to keep it, and it's already rezoned, I get that. So just curious, right? Appreciate the information, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make comment this time? Anybody else? Oh, you've already spoke. Okay. Seems there's nobody else. We'll go back to planning and zoning here, and we'll have some discussion. If we've got any questions here. Anybody in planning and zoning would like to ask any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Wade.
was there a recommended distance away from this intersection with the county's plan? How far did they want the driveway to be back?
Oh, the access points?
Yeah. Or was it a mile or not? Was it
Oh, the frontage road was, all the way back to Mr. Raceler's driveway, so
So it is
like a
back
half
here.
a mile or so.
Well, it was a half mile back, something like, that's what I was trying to recall. If it was a
Yeah,
quarter
for an
mile, half
actual
mile.
street,
Yeah.
yeah. They did say they would allow direct driveway access onto 22, yeah. They'd like it back as far as you can get it based on where the lot lines are, but that they wouldn't, deny you access.
But it was a street intersection, you wanted back a half a mile.
Yes, right.
Secondly, was there a sketch plan from this property to the north at one time? Why am I remembering somebody having some, whether they
You
wanted
mean
to,
on Green's property, right to the north of Farb's? Is that what you're referring to,
Yeah.
is Joe Green?
yeah,
No, I don't believe that, he never has presented anything. We as a city had some really rough kind of layouts of lots and streets, but
so that wasn't his for the,
that was not
Sure.
his.
okay, so whatever, house plans, or whatever he was trying to do back there. Did you do a second house
Well,
in there?
he got special permit approval to replace a home that was there, an old home.
Okay,
Right, and that's all he did. He didn't
That's all he did.
subdivide or anything necessarily.
okay. So those sketches, connecting road through that was the city sketches.
Right, we had only done sketches related to the frontage road plan and how that might lay out in the future. So Mr. Green has no plans to split that I know of.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
just to clarify, Mr. Green has stated very emphatically, while he's alive, he will not be
Okay,
doing anything there.
Okay.
You know, life can always change, and, but his intention right now is to continue farming. And I think he wouldn't mind if his sons took it from there, but
okay,
that being said, you know, life can change in an instant,
sure.
but those were not his plans, those were sketches when the frontage road concept was being floated around. What might that look like if it did develop?
Secondly, the north end of this frontage road concept, did that tie with 199th then? Is that right here?
Yes, it went up
So the,
north. It may have even gone,
this is 199th right here, right?
yes, it may have even gone farther north, up to Old Viking eventually. So I think it was a half mile north and a half mile east, the distance from,
Is what the county was hoping for anyway.
yes, that was,
I wasn't sure what our plan actually had, if we just lined it to 199th or if we did go farther north.
I think we would probably do both in the interim, and then if it were divided someday, we'd still have that out up by Old Viking.
Sure.
At this point, 47 will still state.
Right, I do, the full intersection was slated for Old Viking Boulevard, but, yeah.
Do we have any other questions? I have a question, I don't know, either Mr. Mocker or Mr. Peterson, that the east portion is pretty low, isn't it?
In the northeast corner of the eastern portion of it, yes, there's approximately 2.5 acres of wetland.
You can't really do anything with that there.
Nope, not unless the person wanted to pay to mitigate it, but that's not really my plan. It's too expensive per square foot. Exhibit F is the wetland map too. So you can kind of see where the highlighted areas are.
They will be required to delineate the wetlands formally when they come through with the subdivision, so we'll know exactly where those boundaries are.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could ask a question of the Realtor. You talked about direct access for 3 parcels?
Correct.
Is that gonna be the 2.5 acre parcels?
No, we're just talking the 320s.
The big
For the
ones.
320s?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, basically the front of this, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, this frontage road is set back this far only because of the divided highway. Because when I talked to, I think it was Jane Rose at the county, she's saying they wanted it 1,000 feet back, at least from the intersection. So, but when I look at, you know, say Grant Rademacher's store, Bill's here, they have access on the corner, right? His gas station on 922 has access on the corner. So if he wants to put a station here, there's no way he can survive with an access quarter mile or 3/4 mile down the road or half a mile.
Well, right, so it's a different story. They're talking about driveway access versus a street intersection,
Right.
so.
But I just want to make sure that the county's not going to say, oh, you started that frontage road here, you know, you're not going to get access off of these other pieces.
If it's not built and it doesn't go through, the county can't make you hook up to it, you know. So it depends if it's, you know, what the city requires first and then, you know.
Okay.
Do we have more questions from the planning and zoning here?
I guess I have one more question.
Commissioner Wade?
Liz, is this, he was asking about, when to subdivide. I guess should this be, tabled to be approved with the subdivision? So that he knows it's gonna happen or not happen, or what he can do for a subdivision? If we rezone it, but we don't like the concept he comes back with,
Well, that's true. I mean, it could be subdivided differently or different size lots too, whether or not it's commercial versus industrial, but, you know, they may not wanna take that plunge. It's expensive to have the survey work done and the wetland delineation if you don't know what the zoning is.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, I think, thinking too.
Okay.
I guess I would be reluctant to spend the money, per what Liz said, to pursue it, not knowing, which is like this up in the air idea.
Right.
It's ideal.
Yeah. First step first, yeah, instead of trying to do it all at one time. Okay.
I mean, I would assume this came from somewhere, right? This layout?
It's very conceptual.
Yeah.
Yeah, the applicant and I worked together on that and just to show you sort of what the thinking might be, but it's, yeah, very rough.
From my perspective at this point, I'm really just focused on developing it for self-storage. You know, the industrial, or the additional industrial uses that'll come later, I mean, they're really undetermined at this time, and therefore, it's hard to plan a road around something you don't have, a plan for, so.
Yeah, fair enough.
Any more discussion here? Questions we might have?
So, Mr. Chair, then just to clarify, again, so that we can make sure the council understands, if you guys don't have questions, or you will have questions when you close the public hearing, make sure that you're communicating your thoughts so the council can understand your recommendation when you make it. You know, why you would be for or against specifically changing this to, the question is not what goes on there, but whether you want it to be commercial or industrial. Because as he said, right now, his plan is storage units. The other industrial usages are yet to be determined. So you're not really saying, can he build storage units there? You're saying, is this industrial land or commercial land? Is this retail or storage or various industry other than retail? And that's really the question they're asking. Is it worth him putting his money forward if it's not going to be industrial land? If it is industrial land, then whatever other industrial uses are allowed would be allowed on that land, on those 40 acres.
And the other 20, though, to confirm, still stays commercial.
On the corner.
Yeah.
Corner.
Right.
This
Yep.
is corner.
Right.
According to
Yep.
the request.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the other thing I want to be sure you understand is that as it is now, industrial uses are not allowed in the commercial zone. If we rezone it to industrial, it would be allowing industrial uses and technically commercial uses could go in there as well. So the industrial zoning is more broad than the commercial. Is more limiting to just retail and businesses.
The question I have, there's two lots here we're thinking about changing from commercial to industrial, right?
No, there's only one lot. Mr. Farb's lot is all one lot. So we're not talking about the subdivision tonight. We're talking about just the eastern 40 acres.
Okay, but you got this 320s here, right? You
Right,
got-
that's, right, future, right.
The 120 stays.
This is 120,
Correct.
but we're talking, make these 220s industrial?
Yes, that's what they would like.
Okay. Okay, they're not requesting this. Mr. Peterson's not requesting.
Oh,
this.
yes, he's,
For both of these?
Clarification, it's one lot today, so if we choose to change it, you will change all 60 to an industrial property from a commercial.
no, we can split zone a property. So we can say the eastern 40 acres of Mr. Farb's 60 is zoned industrial.
Okay.
And then, yeah, clearly specify that we want that corner to be commercial.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
so then you could also say the northern 30. So you could say the southern 30 would retain commercial and the northern 30 could be industrial.
Oh, right, it could be any different layout that you want.
It's a mix and match. But right now, it's one parcel, and they're saying they'd like 2/3 of that parcel to be industrial and 1/3 to remain commercial. And it complicates things because the other applicant is only interested in 1/3 of it. But it would be helpful to have 2/3 of it industrial.
Okay, just word it that way, 2/3 of it, yeah, sure.
And how you mix that or recommend or don't recommend it.
Do we have any more questions here in the planning and zoning?
If I may speak, I guess I would just encourage the the planning and zoning committee to really think about the industrial park that's here, that we're surrounded by now, and really look at the utilization and the types of businesses that are in here, and maybe realize the demand that's in now then. You know, I just don't believe that there's a lot of retail, need, right, and necessity, like, at this point, you know, and even in 10 years, I think it's still, you know, I don't think that there's a density here of rooftops to actually support retail. So, you know, you can have the whole 60 acres retail, but it's never gonna get developed. Well, never, that's not fair, but it's gonna take an extremely long time for it to develop because there aren't the rooftops to support it. You know, there's very few businesses that are based on retail, they need daytime populations, right? And when, you know, I would say the majority of people in now then commute somewhere else to work. So therefore, you know, you can't sustain or support these commercial structures that people would invest their capital into, and therefore you have this vacancy issue, so.
Well, and to clarify what he's saying for other people, I think too, that even if we were to switch it to industrial, it can still be commercial, which is what it is now.
So everybody wins.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Cochran.
The other thing to think about is, yeah, I do agree, we most likely would end up with similar uses as we have in the industrial park here. And I only say that because we don't have public sewer and water. So you can't get really large, really high production type facilities or manufacturing, you know, of certain things is sort of not possible without sewer and water sometimes. So that's not, you know, I'm just guessing, but that's my feeling based on septic and well service that we currently have.
If I can add something to it, it's almost like the second what Josh said. I've had it listed for a year and a half, and I've been pushing really, really hard for commercial retail. Many gas stations I make proposals to, and it's a tough sell. And Bill's was one of them, and he said not even 10 years out would he consider building. So it is the reality of the city, and it's commercial, and it's really the only thing that, you know, if we keep the 20 in the corner as commercial retail, you're still planning for the future, but we also have to think of the now. And what I think Met Council pulled city sewer and water in that area.
Okay, we got any more questions here in the planning and zoning?
May I ask a quick question? This is an educational question. Assuming it changes to industrial, when a company or organization chooses to build there, such as the self-storage, is there another hearing or is there a vote or something of that sort? Or, right, is it, everybody wins as long as what shows up there helps the people in the area as well? So I just want to know if we would have a say in that.
Yes, if it's a request that meets, you know, that's a permitted use in the I-1 district, let's say there's no outdoor storage or anything that requires a special permit, then it's just reviewed by the zoning administrator, which is me. If there's an outdoor storage request or multiple buildings or things that are more environmentally worrisome, like a gas station, even fast food restaurants or anything of that nature comes before you, so you would get another letter,
Okay.
public hearing notice.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no more discussion here, we'll go back.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Am I to assume that the road, access road on the east side is right along the property line?
No.
How far?
Do you see that little blue pond? No, the driveway is really undetermined at this point, but there has to be 100-foot buffer along the eastern city boundary.
Okay, but with this other access road from the neighboring city, of course, wouldn't it be beneficial to move it as far as you can to the west? Thereby alleviating a problem with one of the gentlemen and the closeness of the driveway to his property?
Yeah, that's to be determined at a later date, when we review the site plan. Okay.
Okay, is there anybody that hasn't spoken yet out here wants to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Now we'll act upon this. The way I understand right now, there's very little industrial that we have right here in our city, right? Open
Well, in terms of
for usage.
lots that are, ready for sale, that are already subdivided, correct, we have industrial zoned land. If the person is not ready or willing to sell or subdivide, then it's not attainable by, a single business user.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So-
Oh,
If we take this commercial and we put 40 of it as industrial, does that change our comp plan anywhere else? Does industrial have to be pulled from somewhere else and changed?
It doesn't have to be, if the council so chose to do that and replace it somewhere else, they could.
Has there been any other areas that they've talked about right now for,
The city council has talked about the expansion of commercial uses mostly. Well, some industrial, but kind of focusing west of this intersection along Viking. So kind of focusing along Viking.
in this area?
But there hasn't been any formal decision on a 2040 land use plan yet.
Okay. This is the only area they've been discussing is expanding west from where we're at?
On Viking, there was a little discussion about 181st, and I think the majority felt that the 47-22 intersection, had a lot of vacant land still there, so they really weren't gonna add anything to that intersection. Was that your recollection, Mayor Pilon?
Correct.
Because we are pretty well sold out behind us here, aren't
We are, yes. The last city lot just sold. So there's really,
So that lot's been for sale, those lots have been for sale for 12 years, 14 years. We just sold our last one.
we? They just really sold out in the last 3 years for the most part, really, didn't those last few lots?
they really, yeah, we had a lot of infill the last 3 years and.
and being light industrial, those are still nothing that would be too alarming for the community, I guess, as far as somebody that's gonna pollute things. I mean, it's cabinet shops and it's building tiny houses and,
Yeah, exactly. Storage and,
yeah. Yeah. Like I say, this type of property isn't really set up to have your house or factory move in or something like that.
yeah, large scale.
At this time, is anybody willing to make a motion one way or the other?
One more comment, Liz. If we look at Appendix B here, the current zoning map shows the property directly north of the Farr property is already industrial, is that correct?
Yes. So that the enlarged version would be Exhibit C, shows how the proposal looks with the surrounding area, commercial, industrial. So yes, the property to the north of Farb's is split zone 3 ways, commercial along 47, industrial in the middle, and then residential abutting Oak Grove.
But again, none of that is for sale at this time.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
and on that map there, the northernmost, there's a little jut out there that doesn't go back as deep as the industrial blue. That's where it has already been industrial, that was incorporated that far up, because there's already an industrial operation up there, you can see that. If you look at C there, you can see the buildings there.
Okay.
There's actually quite a bit of structure there, it's a private home that also ran a business that was already existing, so they included that since it was.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question for, well, probably Eric Mahaka, and Mr. Peterson. The intended locations for the outside, or the self-storage, is that put on the east end for the purpose of, so it's not in the middle of the farming land and on a smaller parcel in the dead center of the 60? Is that why you started at that end and?
Yeah, I think that it makes the existing acreage that'll be remaining more flexible. You know, as different uses come about. Ultimately, I really only need five acres for self-storage.
Okay.
So ultimately, it'll give me, or some other landowner options down the way.
My reason for my question is because if you were to move your self-storage down towards the center of the 60, then you'd have your access point at a better location.
Yeah, I think that would also, again, the uses on the east side versus the west, I mean, I don't have the middle portion under contract, I have the eastern 20 acres under contract.
Okay.
I'm merely facilitating or helping with the rezoning of their other 20-acre parcel. No, technically it's not a parcel, but portion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mayor.
Just a clarification too on the findings and recommendations, and you're given two, one approving, one denying. But in both of those, there's a statement on the page 2 where the applicants wish to develop the easternmost 20-acre parcel for use as a storage facility. I think it's more accurately self-storage facility and other industrial uses, industrial and or commercial uses. Because it's not, this would have you believe that the whole 20 acres is gonna be storage. As you said, it's gonna be 5 to 10 probably that's storage, and the rest of it will be sold for other purposes, subdivided for other purposes. So it's not exactly accurate to say the easterlymost 20-acre parcel for a self-storage facility. And in the concept plan there, you can see there'll be multiple other divisions of that property. On F. And again, that's just a concept, and all that would have to come before the commission when it was developed, if it was required at that point. So, question tonight is industrial or commercial.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question for Ms. Stockman. The area that's residential behind is, where would that get access through? Coming through Oak Grove here in the future? Or will that be coming through the,
We would also hook that up over to 47 through
some connection
through the
with the?
commercial industrial somehow. But it would definitely connect with that dead end, or, yeah, temporary dead end street in Oak Grove.
Okay. There wouldn't be any advantage to having no residential connecting this piece. Because we're still gonna want something connecting through with this intersection being back somewhere.
Well, that's a possibility, but then that rezoning would require a comprehensive plan amendment.
Okay. And when does our comp plan get renewed?
Well, we're attempting to get that done this year. It's supposed to be done in 2018. Be nice to have it done, halfway through.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Carroll?
Well, I'm gonna state freely, and I know some people aren't gonna like it. Because the land is currently zoned C1, I don't see any harm in, granting the 20 at the eastern end into an I1. Yes, there's gonna be buffer, yes, there is gonna be, close to residential. There is a lot of, vegetation out there already, a lot of trees and such. I don't know, I don't really have a hard decision for the middle parcel. And I'm okay with this moving forward.
You making this a motion then?
I was just talking.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I would agree with Kelly. I would also say that based on the current industrial, commercial, and residential, even turning that middle 20 into industrial isn't a huge surprise based on what is shown here. That would go up to a road, wouldn't necessarily touch any other residential area. So I would make a motion to approve the 40 acres to move to I1 light industrial.
Okay. Do we have a second to this?
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Alders seconded it. Now do we have any further discussion? Is there anything that we need to probably add to this motion?
I don't think we can, right?
I don't know.
There can be no conditions.
No conditions, no conditions. Okay,
My only thought is to include what Jeff said, is that it should state and other uses.
I'll amend
Okay.
it to the
Oh, yes.
Do I need to-
findings,
Do I need to add that?
yeah, if you would.
Okay, and add the, and other uses to the storage.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor, we have a second. All in favor of it, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And this will go to the city council, will make a final decision.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is discussion considered adoption of an ordinance to regulate small cell phone networks installed in the public right-of-ways on public-owned buildings and or on commercial zone property.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest that we move this last on the agenda and we take the Planning and Zoning Commission
Oh, okay.
applicants and
First-
then get to your policies that you want to
Okay.
address.
Okay, we'll look at that. First of all, is Mr. Schilling here?
Yep.
Okay. Would you and Mark Hilliker bring your chairs up here, we're gonna interview you.
Harold, I would like to commend you on sneaking in.
That's a,
He was busy pulling somebody out of the ditch.
Oh, hey, I never even saw him come in.
You didn't see him when he took off his shoes and snuck in.
what we're gonna do here is ask you guys one question, you both answer it, and then we'll alternate back and forth. On some questions here, and if we have any more questions, we'll have them.
If you're tied after that, we go into a lightning round.
Feel pardon interrupting. Some of those questions are kind of redundant. I guess I was wondering if I could amend it a little bit for you.
I'd like to second that.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Some of these are just very redundant with
Okay.
themselves. So.
Okay, okay, then if anybody else has any questions, they can ask them. First of all, we'll start over here on the left. Describe specifically how your present job and education experience would contribute to being on the Planning and Zoning Committee.
I'm a toolmaker, and a lot of attention to detail. And creating a process so something really efficient comes to an end. This is a big project, building the tools that we do it take months. So, it's got a lot of similarities in planning, so you're not just planning something and then finding out, days later that something's fully wrong.
Okay, Mr.
I suppose my experience, I was on the planning and commission and the board of justice for the city of Ramsey for a few years and stuff, and I am in the construction field, and I've been involved in commercial development for projects. That's it.
Okay. I'll give you the next question, you answer it first. What challenges do you anticipate with being on the Planning and Zoning Committee?
What's the what?
What challenges do you anticipate with being on the Planning and Zoning Committee?
The biggest thing that would be the biggest challenge, I think, would be is stupid people. Sometimes you get people that come in and they just, they don't have common sense, so that's my challenge.
Okay.
To me, would be the, keeping harmony, keeping like what we want, rural, and then you got like the industrial part of it. And you gotta have this nice balance. It's gotta be a tough deal, You control the world, but you still gotta have, there's still some industrial going on and stuff, working that all in.
Okay, and I'll ask you the next one. Highlight for us what you know about the city of Nowthen and why you would be interested in being on the Planning and Zoning Committee.
So, yeah, I've been here 22 years, because I like the place. I've lived here that long, been the only house I own. I would, at least in the area I'm at, and a lot of the other, up in that area going north of here, like to keep was the question?
Highlight for us what you know about the city of Nowland, why you would be interested in being on the planning and zoning.
Kind of trying to keep it the same way it is. It was the same answer as him. I like it the way it is over at Ramsey. They kind of screwed a lot of stuff up, and I guess I would rather not see that happen here.
Okay, we'll come back to you then. Do you have a time to go to regular meetings and other meetings related to being on the planning and zoning? Okay.
So, say that again.
Do you have time to go to regular monthly meetings and other meetings related to being on the planning and zoning?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We'll go back to the next question. Did you review the planning and zoning city code and code of conduct as listed for part of the application for appointment to the planning and zoning committee?
I did either. It just can't be much different than what other cities are, so.
We got quite a few pages on it. We'll be going through that a little later. That's very important because there's a lot of things in there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a clarification, are they given that when they apply?
Did you get that? Did you get it?
I just got an application that my wife had picked up from City Hall.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you get it?
We got the code of conduct when we applied, I believe. I don't think we received the planning and zoning city code.
It's part of the whole packet,
The code is?
the whatever, I think you guys are
It'd be-
going through.
they're
the
not,
one now, but-
yeah, the policies or whatever.
You know,
Oh, so it's
It's part of the policies.
policies, not the planning.
Not the whole zoning, yeah, not
Yeah.
the whole city code.
Okay, that was the
Oh, yes,
misinterpretation.
it's not.
What, you didn't get that and read it? The whole?
Yeah, okay, I was like, wait a second, it was only a page and a half long. I know my city policies.
Because, well, I've been on the planning and zoning for 42 years, and I don't think I've missed a meeting in 42 years.
Oh,
That's
you mean
not,
all the same.
I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying, it's pretty important, because I can remember a time when we were on the planning and zoning, we didn't have enough people here, so the chairman was sick, so we called the chairman, and I chaired the meeting because he was sick, but we had to call him to get him here so we could officially have the quorum. So it's important that we have our quorums and have that many people here. We used to have 9 people on the committee instead of 7. And the city council, it was a few years ago, they cut it back to 7. So it's very important to make it to our meetings. And I realize sometimes at work, sometimes you're out of town and stuff like that, that does happen.
I was on the Park and Rec, and I think they had pretty good attendance from what I remember on that.
Okay,
Quite well, yeah.
that's a question I was gonna ask you, Mark. You were on there 3 years?
3 years, that was probably back in 03, 04, 05, something like that.
Okay. And he was on the planning and zoning in Ramsey for 3 years also?
Yep. I was halfway through my second term, and then I moved to Nowland, so I had to resign.
And you've been here 6 years now?
2012.
2012. And Mark's been here 25, I think is,
Over 95,
yeah, okay. Have we got any more questions on the planning and zoning we'd like to ask these two gentlemen?
You were on the P and Z in Ramsey?
Yep, and the Board of Adjustments.
Okay. You related to, Mark, you related to the other, he'll cover it up.
I have a
Or-
brother.
What's that?
A brother and a nephew, 2 different places.
Okay.
Okay, we got any more questions you want to ask these two gentlemen? And remember, whatever we recommend here, the city council can go either way with whatever's recommended here. And legally, what we gotta do is, it's gotta be an open vote, but, if it's majority vote, it doesn't have to be recorded. If it's not a majority, everything has to be recorded, how each one of us vote. So, what we'll do here is, somebody like to make a motion? Yes,
Mr. Chair, I know you,
Mayor.
Mary said some of these are redundant, but I do think that the 2 and 3, the personal qualities you believe are necessary, because the commission does need to work cooperatively, so I think it's important to talk about what are the important personal qualities to be on the commission.
Okay, we'll go back to 2 and 3 then. Briefly describe the 3 most important personal qualities you believe are necessary for being on the planning and zoning.
I like to work with people, absolutely, you know, even in the disagreement, always making sure, you know, you come to some kind of agreement, you know, sometimes you end up being on the losing end, but you might think something, you know, it's gotta work.
And, you know, the construction background, I think is a big deal, for me.
Okay, well, I'll take this other one here. What do you expect to achieve for yourself in the city by being on the planning and zoning? Go ahead. What do you expect to achieve for yourself in the city by being on the planning and zoning committee?
I don't think I'm gonna achieve anything for myself, I guess I would like to achieve something for the city itself, not just for me though.
Okay,
They probably have to say the same, you know.
okay. You know, I seen something happen in our city not too long ago, by an individual that badmouthed city council members and stuff. You know, that's in our policy, where we can't do that, or we can't, do it to anybody that's on our board and stuff. We have to be very careful of what we do. In fact, if we look through our, we'll be going through that later. I'd like you 2 gentlemen to even stay and see, as we look at the policies and see some of the things that are covered like this. And it's very important how we treat each other with respect and stuff. But anyway, are there any other questions that we should be asking these 2 gentlemen here? The biggest thing is that you're probably both qualified and would do a good job. And what we gotta do here, we gotta vote, and when we vote, it'll take 4 yeses for whoever's nominated. So at this time, somebody'd like to nominate one of these gentlemen as to be a representative, to go to the city council, be considered?
Would it be easier if we just went outside, you guys just deal with this?
No, we no. It's gonna,
Probably would be.
it's gonna be on YouTube.
That's fine, but you
Yeah, but-
can discuss this amongst yourself or whatever.
You're not staring at him while you do it.
Think we should do that?
No, that's fine.
No?
It's cold out there.
I'd like an essay written.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead and make the motion.
I'd make a motion to nominate Robert Schiller.
Commissioner Alders nominated Walter Schiller. Do we have a second to this motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Pearl seconded this motion. And I will say, when we vote on this, if you get turned down, don't feel bad, because some of us have been turned down before. There are openings on our road and bridge, there's openings on our planning and zoning also, or our park and rec also. So I'll call for the vote, or is there any discussion about this? Any discussion? There's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Robert Schiller? Say yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Harold? Yes? Okay, it was, yes, all yeses, all yeses. So, Robert, we'll be going, at the city council meeting, second Tuesday of next month, there'll be a decision we made.
Mark, any thoughts of getting back to the park and rec?
No, not.
No? Road and bridge? No? Is there an opening on road and bridge too, or not?
I think
think
that,
so.
I think there's an opening road and bridge there, yes, in Park and Rec.
We'd like to have more people involved, it's always a good thing, so, and I know your family background, I'd sure like to see you on a committee again, that'd be great. So,
Okay, we thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
And the next thing we're gonna be looking at is the, Yeah, if you could stick around, Robert, we will be going through these policies and stuff
Yeah.
now. Of the,
Skate out early. Can't skate out early.
okay, now, the question I have to ask, did we all as commission members read this whole thing?
Of course we did. We read it last year.
You did,
Went
good.
through it last year, yes, we did.
It was about this time of year.
Do we have to break anything down, or is there some things that we wanna bring up? Is there anything you specifically wanna bring up? I'd like to bring up a couple of things. Go to section 9. Section 9, and read through that whole thing there about, we were talking about the way we vote and stuff, the way it's recorded for us on record.
You're gonna read it?
Well, I'll read the last part of it.
Oh, so you're gonna read the whole thing?
No. The formation vote of a majority of members in attendance shall be necessary for adoption of any resolution or other voting matter. The results of any vote should be recorded, listed the identity of the person who made and seconded the motion, and the record of the vote on the motion. Identity of vote count, and unless the vote was unanimous, names of those voting for or against the motion. So, and also I'd like to point out the thing in section 25. Page 10.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
But
what was your reason for pointing that out?
I wanted to point it out because of the vote, because we had a question a while back ago if we could have a secret ballot on something like this.
Oh, I see.
And that's the reason we have to have it recorded how everybody votes. Today, tonight, when we voted on Mr. Schuler, she didn't have to put any names down. But if we'd had one voted no, she'd have list names, how the vote went.
Right, I do that all the time on the findings. I have to identify,
yep,
right, who
yep.
voted for what.
Oh,
Yep.
oh.
Okay, just wondering.
Okay, the other one was on section 20, page 10. And this is one of, and we've been having problems with myself. The chairman presides over the meeting of planning and zoning commission. Speakers, including commission members, do not speak unless recognized by the chairman. And what I've been trying to do is, whenever you make a vote or something, I'll say the commissioner and so forth. That's why I've been doing it. But this here's the proper way to do it. And this is something that we've all struggled with, including myself. The city council does a fairly good job about it. Sometimes when you have discussions, I don't think it's necessary. But especially for votes, I think it's important that we get your name down, who made the motion and who seconded it. And if,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
the council does an excellent job at it, not pretty good.
You think it's excellent?
That's because he's the one speaking.
No, it's an important point though, because especially with these being recorded, you wanna know who's talking. You wanna have one person talking at a time. And by being recognized by the chair, people that might be listening to it, the video doesn't necessarily do an effective job of knowing who's talking all the time, because our camera doesn't move. So if Commissioner Wagner's talking over here and Commissioner Jorgensen's talking over here, we know who's talking, but the people that are watching us online don't. And so that's a big part of it. So you can distinguish between which male or which female is talking, and you maintain the order of one person talking at a time so that the minutes are accurate. So it's important to make sure that the chair has recognized it and move in an orderly fashion. It is an important part of the meetings.
And as we've read through the whole thing here, there's a lot of things there. It's sometimes perhaps we don't clarify it at the meetings, but that's up to the rest of your commission members too. If the chairman's doing something it's not quite right, call him on it. You know what I mean? Regardless of who the chairman is.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you look at your section 10.
Section 10.
Not that it's critical, but that's not the way your agenda reads right now.
Our agenda,
Didn't we adjust this last year?
you talking about other business or?
No, section
Because
10.
you go, right now you do call to order, pledge of allegiance, roll call, meeting agenda approval, previous meeting minutes approval, and then floor items.
Yeah.
And right now you've got floor items down number 6 on your
Down here?
policy.
Well, the chart I have here, this.
I'm just saying that you're reviewing the policy, so either amend your policy to what you're doing, or amend what you're doing to the policy, but just make it
Well,
consistent.
do you think we should amend the policy?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It says right underneath, the order of the business may be varied by the city staff or presiding officer.
We always have floor items after the minutes.
Okay.
So in other words, what we're doing is okay then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also, just keep in mind that we have a temporary staff person in the office. So it's just been kind of getting the agendas together. Just the help too.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if it matters, but can you update this to so it doesn't say the city code? So it says the policy?
You're looking at-
This, the questionnaire.
Oh, that's not, didn't come from us.
No, I originally, I talked to the city, League of Minnesota Cities, and that's where I came up with the questions.
Okay, because I was like, okay.
Because that's some of the things that I got from the League of Minnesota Cities when I talked to them.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think anybody would read the full city code before
Yeah.
coming before you.
Okay.
You know, they'd be interested to learn it, of course, after they got.
Well, I still don't know the whole thing. I've been around here for.
Really?
Yes.
After 40 years, Dale.
Yeah,
It's, we keep changing it, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. You know, this is something new though. We never used to have anything like this.
What?
These policies and stuff. The city code, we haven't always had a city code.
Well, the city code
Code is this.
Yeah,
includes the zoning ordinance, the
Right.
subdivision
Okay,
ordinance,
okay.
and all the
Yeah.
regulations.
okay, we've had that. But
What you're holding is not a city code.
no, these policy.
Okay, policy.
And this is new, we just got this in 2016.
Well, that's when it was updated, right? We had it before that. We didn't?
No,
Okay,
never
sorry.
had it.
My apologies. I guess the city council had policies, but you didn't.
No.
On page 11, there's a section on request for information.
11 what?
It's a bad joke.
Page 11?
It's just a joke.
Oh, I was looking for it.
It is there though, yes. Right under focus,
But at
discussions.
any time of the year, this policy can be updated.
Right.
If we run across something we need to take care of, it can be updated. But it's supposed to be done at the first of the year.
Does something like this need to get added into it, the interview questions?
Probably, it wouldn't hurt, would it? I don't know. Maybe it could be worded
I think
in.
they're a separate thing.
I'm asking. I don't know that these should be entered
I
into
was
there,
gonna
but
say, you
maybe
should
some
talk
wow
about-
factor ones.
We could probably get some better questions than that.
Well, I mean, I think that could have gone either way, so
It could have went
maybe
either.
something that would have like differentiated.
It could have went either way. Either one of them did a good job.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
'Cause
So
Mark-
how do you, like, all these questions are fairly the same?
He
And so-
opened it up. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
He opened it up, you opened it up for us to answer questions to the applicants.
Yes.
And if we had any questions that we thought may have,
No, right.
which I didn't have any, but I didn't know what I would ask. So that would be, if we thought we had any questions that we could possibly ask to help make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took off some time, so-
I wasn't planning on it, so.
no, so, well, anyway, we got anything
Mr.
else?
Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
the one that I questioned is on page 4. It's section 11E. Delivery of agenda to members and deferring to Corey's comment, we do have somebody new in the office there, but one of the things that we were looking for was the 6 calendar days before the meeting, so people did have an opportunity to go out and visit sites. You know, getting things Thursday night, Friday morning. If you're busy on that weekend, you're coming to this meeting without having actually done much investigation. And it really is imperative. This is you know, my apologies to Park and Rec and to Road and Bridge, but this is the most critical commission. You guys are making decisions on what our roads are, frontages are gonna look like, what, you know, zoning things. We can get in trouble here if we aren't, if we're arbitrary and capricious. The lawyers love that. So you have to make sure that we're consistent. And so when you come in, if you deny things, you need to put in writing why they were denied. If you approve things, you need to understand the consequences and the precedent that you're setting. If you do things in one part of the city, somebody else in another part of the city can come and say, I want what they got. And so you can say, well, it's not in my neighborhood, I don't really care right now. They can have that. But you need to come prepared for that. And so that's why we went with the 6 days to have material, so you have the best opportunity to come prepared. And I would also recommend that, you know, everybody's got these books, you should have those with you as well, because that's what we base it on. The ordinances here are how we make our decisions, not how we think it's best for our individual interests, but we say, if this is the ordinance, that's what we have to go by. If this ordinance isn't good, if it isn't up to date, we should change this so we can go by the ordinance. But really, we should have the books and be referring to that when we're making decisions. So I think that's an important part of this, is having that, you know, 6 days out is Tuesday night.
I think we were getting them prior, right? On
Wednesday noon
Wednesdays.
is my goal, but
Yeah.
But everything that's gone to public hearing, you've got 10 days beforehand, right, or 2 weeks before this meeting?
Oh, yeah.
We have a deadline, so I mean, there shouldn't be any surprises, because your public notices had to go out 2 weeks before,
Right.
so.
Yep,
So
I'll take the blame.
The deadline to get the information, if you have to back it up to get it to
I
staff,
got 5 days still, right?
is that?
I got this packet emailed to me last week, right?
Yeah.
Or to come out Thursday?
Thursday this time.
Thursdays, yeah.
Thursday morning, I think she got it out.
About right, yeah.
But I think before, I mean, maybe the last 2 months, we were getting them that 6 days prior.
That's because.
I was actually gonna comment on it, that we were getting it.
Yeah,
in
but see,
time.
now they're short on staff now, so.
Right, I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
I'm saying I
yeah.
think that it's been adhered to.
We're not short on staff, we just have new staff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and they're typically, you know, they are waiting for me, so don't get me wrong. If it's late, it's usually my fault.
I was gonna say, staff's been on top of it.
So, but I'd like to ask does everyone like the paper copy, or would some of you just like, you know, email? I mean, a lot of times we put those out there in mailboxes and they don't get picked up till Monday or even Tuesday.
Well, I like the paper copy.
I'll speak on that. The paper copy comes in extremely handy here. When we're here, when we don't have our computers in front of us, but I do use the computer copy
Okay.
up until I get here, because that's why mine's typically being dropped off at the day here, because I
Oh,
am
okay, good.
normally
Well,
writing
that's
it
good to
online.
know.
Mine, same thing. I go through
Yeah.
it
You look online.
electronically.
Okay, good.
And if I have to print something, I'll print it out, whatever I need to do, but
Okay.
for the most
good.
part, I use the paper here, big time.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay,
First pack I got at home, and then I seen it was here.
you know, don't have any other questions, we'll get on to, back to Liz with this new cell phone, or this regulation about small cell phones, wireless networks installed in public right-of-ways on public-owned buildings or commercial zone property. There's a lot of stuff there to look at.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is a lot here. You know, it was a change at the legislative level, so I wanted to bring it up. But not 100% convinced that now that needs this. You know, there's these 6-foot boxes that can be placed on poles or in the right of way, like the electrical boxes. And if you're dealing with smaller lots and some of the, more city-type suburbs, those boxes can impede somebody's view, or, I guess they're a lot more noticeable. But, honestly, I'm not 100% up to speed on all of this either. I don't feel that there's a big rush. If you wanna take another month and look it over, I did get one example, from a city that did pass it, and, they had according to their attorney, the most important part of it was this co-location agreement, and it was really detailed. I mean, it was like a 20-page agreement, and it just seems kind of over the top, for now then. But,
What's the deal now with the fiber optics come through? Is that what we're talking about?
no. Fiber optics can be in the right of way, just like electric lines, cable, all that can be located in the right of way.
We're just talking about cell phone towers then?
This is like, these are called small wireless facilities, and they're almost like a booster. They work off of the big towers, the big cell towers, but it's kind of like a booster that you'd put like in your basement that helps you get good reception.
For filling in dead zones.
Yeah, kind of like dead zones, or I believe, council member
Brian,
Brian said they had one at the threshing show, right?
They could.
Oh, I see, I thought you said they did have one, okay, they could, like an event, special event. They had them down, during the Super Bowl downtown and other places, but, the state basically said that they, they have the right to co-locate like other utility companies. So they're giving the cities an opportunity to specify, where and how, and if you don't specify, then they will just be allowed to go kind of where they choose. That's why some of the cities are specifying where they would like them, or where they can and cannot go.
in other words, they have to come in and get a permit?
No, there is no permit.
But how can we specify when we don't know where they gotta go?
Well, in other words, we would specify, what poles or what, city, they can be on a city-owned light pole, if it's, I guess these are the kind of details that I'm not 100% sure on yet, and that we all kind of have to work through. So, I can't even answer all your questions right now. But it is a complicated thing. I would like to look into what the surrounding areas have done, more so than, the metropolitan suburbs, to see how, the local areas have handled it.
Is there a deadline?
No, no deadline.
So could we make a motion to table this for 1 month to get some more info and give us some baselining of the surrounding communities?
Yes, we could, if everybody felt
Do we-
it.
Do we need to do that since it's just a discussion?
Yeah, we don't even have to have a formal motion, you're right.
Okay.
But we could certainly just keep it on the
Are
agenda.
there, so help me, are there people asking for this in the area, coming in and from if it's a private sector, we just
I-
wanna be on the front side of it so they don't just start showing up at any particular spot, and all of a sudden we decide that
Right.
we don't want them there, that's not the right size, or the right shape, or it's too close, we want to have something in place for,
Right, exactly. If
from
you
a
wanna be
regulation.
proactive, or if you just wanna wait for it.
because if you wait for it, there's, the way it's set up at the state level, they wouldn't necessarily need to come in for a conditional use permit or any sort of permit, it would just happen.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
the league has a fact sheet that was in your packet. And one of the problems is, in their background, they do state the new legislation introduced in 2017 will once again take local decision makers out of the conversation and will provide unfettered access to the public right of way by private telecommunications companies. You don't think telecommunication companies are very aggressive right now? They will take what they can get, and if you're not ahead of it, they'll prey on those cities that aren't ready. So the 4 items there, 4 bullet points, these for-profit companies will be the only unregulated industry allowed unfettered access to this public asset, to public assets. Automatic approval provided by this legislation ties the hands of cities who are responsible then for managing public spaces. And considering the elements of public health, safety, and aesthetics, it's out of our hands at that point if we don't have a plan going in. Legislation limits and in some cases eliminates cities' cost recovery options for maintaining the public assets these companies are accessing. You know, right now, the big towers come in, we get a lot of money for this tower sitting over here. And every private home that has a big tower in there is getting thousands of dollars a year for that. But there's also maintenance issues there. And if they're on our public poles or on our public buildings, we don't get anything for it here. And it even can question the right of way. But right now, if somebody wants to put utilities up our streets, there's a right of way permit that we get a fee for that. The other thing is, it would supersede existing zoning ordinances and comprehensive plans that cities have enacted and planned over the years. So it really is something that we should investigate so that we're ahead of it before the companies come in and start saying, because they're gonna be versed in this in every city they've dealt with. And they're gonna come in, you got no plan? Okay. We've had it with other people come in, you know, when they want to build here. And they're saying, other cities, we have to come up with architectural review plans, we have to come up with quite a bit more than you do in now that they find it easy to work here, which is good. But it can also be a problem if they have completely different ideas of what the city should be than we do. And if there's booster cells, and out in this area, there's a real need because we're finding that the coverage from some of the providers right now is not very thorough and widespread. So it would make sense to look into this further. The league has provided a number of documents that are part of the package here. But, you know, what can we do and what can't we do compared to what the city's allowed to do right now in regulating where things are at.
Okay, I got a question to ask Liz. In other words, some of the developments both by me, they're not on the main line for this fiber optics. So a box could be put up in their area so they could be able to pull down the fiber optics in.
This is not related to fiber optics.
It's not related at all.
This is cell service.
This
Oh,
is
this
cell. Cell
Oh,
service.
okay, I'm sorry. This is just cell phones.
Yes,
Okay, because certain cell phones, even at my place, won't work.
right, and that's why these are somewhat desirable for,
And the tower's right here. I gotta run off in this tower here. And, some of these cell phones won't even work in my house. I got a stucco house.
yeah, I stand at my front door and talk to.
Uh,
It's all over the
Doesn't work in my
metro.
metal building. So,
I
phone
live
won't work.
on the edge of town and even mine cuts out, people know I'm almost home. And I have Verizon, which works everywhere.
But basically, they could pop up some little pole at,
Anywhere.
corner of 5 and 24th there. It's public right away, they can just pop a pole up.
And they're that powerful that,
They don't need a permit, is what this is saying then.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, okay.
Right.
Yep.
You don't have an ordinance correcting otherwise. That's what they're saying, review ordinances and see what you got.
Yeah. 'Cause if Ramsey puts one in there too, you can bet that right outside of Ramsey and every public right of way, they could be trying to put them up and now then to help boost their signal in Ramsey.
Yep, that's a good idea then. Liz wants to get something together for us to look at.
There's a fair amount of those old poles that they have that stick up about yay high too, that the snowmobiles love.
Those are telephone poles, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the regular landlines.
Yeah.
And they love to climb them. And they knock them down. And CenturyLink doesn't fix them very fast. It takes about 6 months.
They duct tape them.
Well, sometimes. I got one that's flatter than a pancake. And they're not in the right of way where they're supposed to be.
Okay, that pretty well covers that then, as you're gonna get some more information for us.
Is there anything you wanna see specifically, or should I just focus on the surrounding cities? See what they've done?
Focus on the rural, the ones out in the outlying area.
Columbus and such, that are similar to us?
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
I'm sorry, but you will still check out what our surrounding cities are doing so that we're not gonna be invaded, basically? Or, yep.
Okay, then we have one motion left. Someone like to make it?
Come on, Harold. I'll make a motion.
No, I ain't.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Pearl,
Mullen?
Moore made the motion. Who wants to second the motion?
I will second it.
Commissioner Pearl seconded it. Any discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I did it last month.
This is one of the
You're
fastest
afraid of
meetings we ever had.
No, I did it last month.
Oh, you did it.
No, I was just reading it tonight.
How are you, ma'am?
Oh, I'm good.
Feeling better?
Yeah.
Is your back okay?
But every time I
Yep.
so when I go home and it's